Welcome back to the channel. This is the Action Figure Grader, and today we're going to take a look at recent sales for vintage mint on card action figures. I got a couple of 12-inch figures, but mainly later release figures from the original Kenner line. And we do have a few early card backs that we're going to go through. The first one is an AFA 75 Princess Leia. This is a 12-back A, and it's also the Taiwan. Made in Taiwan. So you can see there on the back of the card in the bottom right underneath the proof of purchase, made in Taiwan. It did have some card curl, and it was an overall 75 grade. Hard to see the subgrades. It looks like 75, 75, 80 were the subscores on that one. So made in Taiwan, punched example, no price sticker. That one sold in an auction for $18.50. Pretty decent deal there for an early 12-back A Princess Leia. We had this 12-back for R2-D2. This was sold in a make an offer situation. R2-D2 punched example with a price sticker there. It looks like Best, is it Best Products? Yeah, Best Products. Man, I love Best Products. You guys know I love Best Products. The card was pulling away from the blister, or the blister was pulling away from the card there. So, you know, this one is not perfect, okay? But it is an early 12-back. It was listed for $900. The best offer accepted on that was $710. So $710, despite that card tearing away there at the top of the blister and then on the right-hand side. So not perfectly sealed there. This is kind of a budget-friendly example of an early 12-back R2-D2. Clear blister, just unfortunately was pulling away. Next up, here are those 12-inch figures that sold at auction. First was an AFA 75 Jawa. This was mint in sealed box, 75, 80, 90 were the subscores on that one. That one sold for $672, which feels like a pretty good deal for a factory sealed 12-inch Jawa. You know, unsealed, obviously, they're not that expensive. You can probably pick it up for, I'd say, $100 to $130. You know, complete, just loose complete for the 12-inch figure. But still, $672 for a factory sealed graded mid-grade example. That's not a terrible deal. The same seller also had a 75 grade 12-inch Stormtrooper. This one had subgrades of 285 subgrades for the window and the figure, and then the box got a 75. So that one sold for a little bit more, obviously, $1,008 on 21 bids. And, you know, in higher grade, these can go for $1,500 or more, depending on the grade. But for a 75 grade, that seems like a pretty fair deal as well. Next up, this one obviously was not perfect. It did have some card issues in the upper left-hand corner. But, you know, again, not everything has to be grade-worthy. We talk about that a lot. This one was a pretty nice example, though. 21-back Luke X-Wing. Clear blister. Blister was in really good shape. It just unfortunately had some major creases. Well, not major, but, you know, substantial creases here and there on the card. Probably about, I don't know. This is probably about, let's see here. Let's see if we get some other photos of the card. You know, that corner looked pretty good. This is the corner that had the major crease there. So you can see that. And then, you know, another faint one by the ages 4 and up. Back of the card, pretty good. But because of those major creases in that upper corner, this is probably at best a 75. It feels like a 70 grade. It feels like a 70 grade because it's such a substantial crease there. That's my guess. I could be wrong on that. It could get a 75. But again, this is not really one you probably want to grade. This is just perfectly adequate to have it in a sliding acrylic case like this. The blister on it was very nice. Figure looked great. Blaster was still in his hand. That one sold in an auction for $598. So, you know, in higher grade, that, you know, it makes sense at $598. In higher grade, over $1,000 very easily for a 21-back offerless Luke. This was kind of a, you know, a beater lot, I guess you'd call it. You had the Death Star droid, yellowed blister, very heavily, not heavily, but, you know, fairly moderately yellowed blister with some edge wear to the card. And then the R2, or the R5, excuse me, was very interesting. It was very heavily yellowed on the body. That's not something you see every day. So these clearly were not stored that well. You can also see the blisters pulling away in the upper right-hand corner. So again, budget-friendly examples, $1233 for both of them together. I don't know if I'd pay that. I don't know if I'd pay $1233 for those two. They just have such heavy yellowing to the blisters, to the figures. You know, it's just, it feels like it should have been under $1,000, $500 a piece max for those two. That's my personal gut on that one. And you can see the heavy sticker residue in the lower right-hand corner on the R5D4 as well. So $12.33 to me feels like more than I'd pay, but that's just my personal opinion. Next up, this was a nice example. 32 back A IG88, CAS 80 plus. That one sold for $6.15. I just sold my mint on card 32 back B IG88. Mine was an AFA 75 plus, and I sold mine for $4.95. So, you know, for a CAS 80 plus, probably about right. Mine was an unpunched example. This one was punched. So, you know, 6 of one, half dozen of the other, but 80, 85, 85 were the sub scores on that one. It's not the same card. This is the 32A. Mine was a 32B, but still very, very nice example for the IG88. $615 on 23 bids plus $25 shipping. This seller over in the UK, who unfortunately, as I've talked about, does not ship to the US, he had some absolute heaters at auction. The first one was an ESB Palatoy 41 back A Han Hoth graded UKG 85%. Clear blister, straight 85s for the sub score. I actually thought that price was really good. This was, admittedly a punched example, but any ESB with the Palatoy logo still on it, they do tend to command over 4 figures, usually. And this one in an auction sold for 720 pounds, which is $927. That seems like a good deal relative to even some of the examples that I see sell on Facebook. I mean, it was a high-grade UKG 85%. That is a beautiful, beautiful Palatoy Han Solo Hoth. He also had this yellowed blister 77 back A Jawa AFA 85. That one sold for $462 US dollars, punched example. That's a big number. That's a really big number for a 77A, but it was an AFA 85, and even yellowed blister, you are going to pay a lot of money for it, but probably about right, just given where I've been selling some of my AFA 85 77 back A's that are yellowed. I've been selling a few like Bosk AFA 85. I think I sold mine for $400, and I had a Greedo made in Spain. That one went for more, obviously, because it was a Spanish figure inside. That was also an AFA 85 77A. Again, it was made in Spain, but that one I think sold for $550. So, if you're looking for any nice high-grade mocks, I am slowly selling off a few of mine on Rogue 5 Toys on Facebook. So if I remember, I'll put a link to Rogue 5 in the video description. Make sure you answer the questions when you try to join. Otherwise, Chris will not let you join. We're just trying to keep a lot of the scammers out, things like that. We want to make sure you abide by the group rules for claims and things like that. So anyway, that one was a beauty. 77A Jawa AFA 85 for $462 US dollars. This one was a nice one. Cloud Car Pilot, unpunched, no price sticker, AFA 80. This was a 65 back A. Look how beautiful that blister is. That one sold in an auction for 295 pounds, which is $380 US dollars. A very fair price, in my opinion, for a beautiful Cloud Car Pilot. He also had an AFA 85 Clipper offer, Tri-Logo Chief Chirpa. Beautiful example there. And Chief Chirpa's kind of wedged up in there. I don't know how that happened. Maybe it's laying down, but it looks like it's standing up, but he's levitating. This is after C-3PO got angry with the Ewoks, and he's making him levitate. So that one sold for really cheap. I don't know why this one went so cheap. This one was sold for 174 pounds, which is $225. That just seems like highway robbery for an AFA 85. I know CIB had one of these at auction. I don't know if it had the Clipper offer, but it was an AFA 85, and it sold for well over $500, if memory serves. Maybe it was $450, somewhere in that ballpark. This seems way too cheap, though. I don't know what happened there. Maybe he took it off early. But for a Clipper offer, AFA 85, Tri-Logo Chief Chirpa, he really should open up some of these to U.S. bidders, because this would have gone for probably double that price of $225 US dollars. He also had an ungraded General Lando Tri-Logo. Very clean condition, though, unpunched with the 1 pound 59 pence price sticker, probably about an 80 grade. That one sold for 306 pounds, which is $395. Again, way too cheap for a last 17 unpunched Tri-Logo in about 80 grade condition. That one should have sold for closer to $500, in my opinion, if not more. That was a beauty. This seller had an AFA 80 Tri-Logo Han Carbonite. This one was a clear blister. Beautiful example. Unpunched, no price sticker. $600. That feels like a really good deal to me. We've seen some other AFA 80s for this particular card back go for over $800. So again, that one went way too cheap at $600. That's a great deal there for somebody. Here was another one that same seller that in the UK had. This was beautiful. This was an archival case AFA 85 Amonomon, and it was labeled clear blister. It looks clear blister. It may be starting to yellow just ever so slightly, but look how beautiful that blister is on that Power of the Force Amonomon. That one is about as close as you can get to clear blister. 85, 85, 90 were the subscores. Again, archival case, unpunched, no price sticker. That one is stunning condition, and the price reflected that. 847 pounds, which is almost 1,100 US dollars. That is a beautiful example for a monomine, and I would actually argue that's too low. I think on Hakes, this would have gone for like 1,400 or 1,500 bucks. That one was absolutely beautiful. Next up, an ungraded example. This was down in Australia. This seller has had a lot of really nice mint-on cards at auction. This one is a Transition 48-back free 9-num offer. And this one is for Luke Bespin. Obviously yellowed blister, but overall really clean shape. That one was unpunched, no price sticker, 923 Australian pounds, which is 557 US dollars. Great deal on that one. Probably about a low 80 grade would be my guess. That's just a guess on it, but that's a pretty nice condition example there. Let's see. This same seller also had an ungraded R2-D2 pop-up lightsaber with a sliding acrylic case, probably in about a 75 grade. It had some issues around the hang tab there. You can see some spider veins there. That one sold for 702 US dollars. Again, think about what a loose complete R2-D2 pop-up lightsaber goes for. That's a really good deal there. No matter what's going on with the blister. Assuming that blister has no cracks, somebody got an absolute banger of a deal there. I would actually argue that even if it did have cracks in the blister, that's a really, really nice example. Yeah, you can see there, I don't know what's going on around that, it might just be an air bubble around that blister there. But it almost looks like it broke off there by the coin, but it's probably just lighting. But 702, good deal there. Again, same seller also had a Power of the Force Jawa. That one sold for 428 US dollars. In higher grade, these can go for over $600 all day long. This one was not perfect, probably about a 75 plus grade condition, maybe a low 80 if you're lucky there. But again, a pretty good deal there. This was one that I sent out to my Patreons, and one of my buddies, Matthew, picked it up. AFA 80 Palatoy 65D AT-AT driver. This is not a Toy Tony. This one has a correct tri-logo blister on there. Absolutely stunning condition. 80, 80, 85. And it was listed for $439. That to me is a no-brainer buy. So I'm glad he picked that up to go with his other AT-ATs. Beautiful example there. $439. This one, I wasn't sure if it would sell or not, but it did sell. Clear blister 8D8 on a 77 back A. How often do you see a clear blister for 77 back A's? That one is really in stunning condition. Beautiful example there. That one did sell at $400. Probably an 80 plus, maybe an 85 grade condition. So look how beautiful that blister is. I keep saying that, but it's just true. I mean, it's just anytime you see Return of the Jedi, later Return of the Jedi card back with a clear blister, it's just chef's kiss. Really, really nice. So congrats whoever got that one. What else do we got? We got some from Brian's Toys. This was a yellowed blister 79 back B Lando Skiff AFA yellowed 80. That one sold for $213.50. Good deal with the yellowed blister there. And let's see, this is the 65 back C C3PO removable limbs. Again, AFA yellowed 80. That one sold for $301. C3PO removable limbs just holds its value really well. I don't know why that is, but it just, even on yellowed blisters, they still command a pretty decent sales price. And on clear blisters, you can pay a lot of money. They can go for $500 plus sometimes in high grade. Next up was the Chewbacca with the alternate image Power of the Force card. AFA 85, that one sold for $610. That's come down. And this one, even with a yellow blister in high grade like this, used to be over $800. So $610, pretty good deal there for a punched example. Power of the Force Chewbacca. Finally, we had a Last 17 A-Wing pilot on the Power of the Force card. AFA 80 plus at auction, $571. $571 seems like a really good deal there for a very nice high-grade unpunched example. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave me a like. Thank you, as always, for watching, and I'll be back soon.